Welcome back to the Dynamics Compass podcast, where insights from experts will help Dynamics partners and users navigate their way through the rapidly evolving ecosystem. And today we're joined by Andrea Hall. She is the Customer Success Manager at Innovia Consulting, which is a Microsoft Inner Circle partner. However, Andrea has been working on the customer side the prior 24 years. She started in operations. She moved into IT and up to become the VP of IT and Information Systems and Acquisition Integration. She implemented NAV way early on and has been riding the wave up to Business Central. She has been a user of the platform, an admin, and led a team that was responsible for the Dynamics ecosystem. You may have met Andrea as well last month at DynamicsCon in Denver, where she gave 3 presentations. If anyone knows what's going through the mind of the customer and end user when new technologies arise, it's Andrea. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for joining.
Thank you, Roy. I'm super happy to be here.
All right. Well, let's jump in because we're with these series we're tackling, or we want to discuss actually the hype of Copilot. A lot of companies are considering it. At least that's the feel. But what's really going through the minds of the companies? So the first question I wanted to ask you: how would you describe the appetite for Copilot for Dynamics of existing Dynamics customers?
Yeah, it's so interesting. So I would say it is starting. It is starting and it's real and people are interested. So a few weeks ago, when I was at 2 back-to-back conferences, every session, every meal, everywhere I went, Copilot was a topic related to whatever was being discussed. So a couple years ago, it was sort of this future promise. And I think
Mhm.
every day business people realize now it's happening and it's real. So there's always people who are just jumping off the mountaintops for the thrill and they don't know what's ahead of them.
Yeah.
I don't recommend that, but there are people who are climbing the mountain and starting to look and are very interested in learning what Copilot is about and how it can be leveraged for their business. I think there's still a natural group that are happy to stay at base camp and don't want to go anywhere else. But I strongly, strongly recommend you've got to be starting the march up the mountain and getting educated. And it's real and it's happening and it can actually make a positive difference for your business.
All right. Well, talking about that march up the mountain, then, what have you found are the most common concerns that decision makers have before pulling the trigger on Copilot?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So there's two, inevitably two concerns, always security about Copilot,
Hmm.
whether they're informed or not informed, security is always the first question. And then quickly following behind that is what's the ROI? you know, Budgets are tight and, people have to be profitable. And so, are we going to get value for the spend on Copilot?
Yeah. And where do those concerns come from?
Well, I think that it's real life. So security, especially being in the end user seat, the business that's running these systems, it's great to work with a partner, but you're ultimately responsible for your own security. You're responsible for your own system. So, you know, a business leader should always be considering security, learning about it and how to protect yourself for the real risks that exist today. So I think that's well founded and that's real. And again, ROI, I think budgets are tighter than they've ever been. And so especially as an IT leader, we're being asked to really prove we can't do technology for technology's sake. We have to really prove that there's value for the business.
Yeah, that's interesting. With the security, for example, that's a very broad topic in itself. Do you have a few examples of what security concerns people may have?
Yeah, yeah. I think for me there's sort of two that are on the tip of everyone's tongues when they're talking about it as they're starting to talk about Copilot. And one is sort of this, we're all becoming familiar now with the risk of oversharing, accidental exposure of data and information. So probably there are a lot of us in the world who haven't been taking their internal governance as thorough, doing that as thoroughly as we probably could have or should have been. And it didn't matter as much before because, you know, no one was navigating to find a document that they didn't need to be looking at, but it was protected, by not doing anything. But now with Copilot, the tool is built to share information and surface information. So for those of us who were lacking on our governance, we have to take a step back and put the right protocols in place. So our accidental access to internal data. And then the second is, I think there's a natural concern that our organization's data is going to get out in the world.
Yes.
And it will be seen by others and whatnot. And on both of these fronts, there are tools for this. So Copilot by Design by Microsoft, and I do not profess to be a Copilot expert, but I am an eager Copilot learner, and things are changing regularly. So even on the security front, by design, your prompts are not ever released out into the wild. So your data is not released into the wild. So pretty quickly, some of the security concerns can be alleviated, and IT leaders should continue to learn and press more. And the rules of the game are changing regularly. It's changing very quickly, but oversharing and doing our governance to protect our information and making sure it doesn't get out in the world.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point, because with the early adoption of ChatGPT and the Samsung example that came out, like that the prompts could be accessed by external companies, Microsoft being a 49% stakeholder of ChatGPT or OpenAI. Like, does it work the same, or will there be the same risks? So I think those are valid things to consider, at least before you pull the trigger on anything. And the second one that you mentioned was the ROI. It's been the tightest as it's ever been. How it's still very early on. Is an ROI, can it already be determined, or is it you got to have faith?
So it's probably unfair to answer both. So I think there are cases where there is an ROI present, and let's consider it the early ROI. So I have a few things to say about that, but let's say it's the early ROI. I think the payback is only going to increase and grow over time. So you might assess this and evaluate and say, our use case is coming soon. So whenever you either start now or you start soon, it's going to only grow from there. So you have to sort of determine your appetite for a little bit of investment to start learning and practicing and applying it to be in position to get the gain. The question that usually follows the ROI, is there an ROI? Every single person I talk to says, can I cut headcount? Ugh, that's such a hard determination of ROI. And I suggest that there's a lot more value to be derived than simply cutting headcount. There's efficiency gains. There's better quality of work. There's so many things that will come from doing it. So while you may not reduce headcount today, you're going to get better quality of work, better results, faster action, better decisions. I believe that has real value as well. And I will even say, for those who are really hung up on the headcount thing, I suggest in some cases it will defer future headcounts from being required by the optimizations that will be gained now. So, I think there's an investment to be had, and the benefit will come very quickly.
Okay. As someone who's come from the customer side, what would have been, so say you're still on the customer side, your team use Microsoft Dynamics, Copilot is introduced to you. What would have been the steps that you would have taken before so you're able to make a decision on, oh yeah, this is what I want, or now we're gonna put it on the back burner?
Yeah. Number one is learn, ask questions, go on blogs, go to Microsoft Learn, read, understand, like, what is this tool? What are the applications? It's incredible how far reaching it is. It's in Outlook, it's in Word, it's in Teams, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Get smarter about how it can be leveraged generally, think about how that can be applied to your organization, get smarter about the infrastructure security aspects of it. Absolutely learn, learn, learn. That's a number one, so that you know what you're talking about and what this tool is. And it's going to shift and grow and evolve quickly. Keep learning because we're all in for a ride and we need to stay on top of it. So I would learn. I would do some anticipation of a pilot group, which I recommend. I would do some pre-launch planning.
Yeah.
There's a checklist. I actually went to Copilot and I said, generate a launch program for Copilot. And it gave me, I think, some really great bullets to follow. So there's my first experience. So do some pre-launch planning, assess your security, assess your infrastructure, assess or the configurations that you're going to use. And then I would recommend a pilot group. So it's cost effective, it's a small footprint. Get some people in either departments you think are ripe for the benefit, users that are the kind of people who want to explore.
Yeah.
Get a pilot group going, give them some education, encourage them to learn, give them an interactive communication tool. Stand up a Teams channel where people can post, I just found this, I just learned that. And then the questions like, I hit a roadblock, and let this group generate energy and feed themselves. Then you can determine your proof of concept. How would this role use it? How would that role use it? And you can kind of then make a more thoughtful case as to why this is beneficial to the organization at a low cost, low footprint. Then I would find the best ways that we want to invest in it in a more widespread approach.
Okay.
And step into that.
So you're saying with a small group, play around with it, so we can then have examples to pitch it to management instead of first think through how we can apply AI and leverage it, and then try and see if it actually, and test it with the small group.
Yeah, I think that's what I would do, because the things that I find that we who are running systems to facilitate our business, sometimes we say, "Oh, I'm too busy, so I'm just going to lob it over the fence. Here, everyone has a license. Go ahead and use it." But you have not invested anything into this, so you're not going to reap the real value that can be derived. So be thoughtful about it. Select the right areas to start with, select the right people to start with, and provide education. You say, just play with it is not enough.
Yeah.
Have people share their use cases. Think about use cases. Like, if you lob it over the fence, this will not provide enough ROI for you. If you treat this as a significant business differentiator for your internal processes and the services that you can provide to your customers,
Yeah.
then you will harness the power of this tool, which I think is great.
Yeah. That's actually very interesting, because I've heard someone else say it as well, but you'd be a better person to actually answer this then. But putting yourself in the shoes of the users or your admins, how would they, how enthusiastic would they be if Copilot is thrown at them like, hey, here's a new tool? You think that people are very eager these days to play around with it, or with the question like, oh, can I cut headcount? Do they see it as a threat? Like, what's the enthusiasm amongst them?
Yeah, well, I'll answer that that question by saying, first, like anything, humans are key. Technology doesn't serve the business, it serves the people who are doing the business. So if we don't take change management point of view, think about explaining why we're exploring this, what our goals are to get out of the system, what do you think, to the staff, listening to their feedback about it.
Yeah.
That's the way in which this will be maximized.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I hear different things in the market, so I think there's a lot of companies, a lot of teams that could get advice as well. Like, instead of winging it, maybe seek some advice. Like, oh, we recommend these steps if you really want to get the most out of it.
Mhm.
Seek some advice. Um,
And I would recommend in your thoughtful approach, come up with 6 to 10 ways that Copilot can be used. Even if it's the ones we sort of if you're starting to think about Copilot, you already know about this.
mhm,
It can summarize your emails. It can help you draft a document. You need job descriptions, it can help you draft that. You need a proposal, it can help you draft that. But think of and actually document and articulate 10 use cases, 10 ways that your staff can be using it. Arm them to go into their daily work with these tools already defined. Then there's, maybe a third of the population who's going to adventure and be inspired and find new ones, and then
mhm.
make sure they have a way to share it with the others. But I think it's completely unfair to say, just try it without actually educating them on the ways that common uses today are being put in place so they can you want to let them know how to explore it, practice it, trip and fall, gain confidence. Then, when you're confident in a tool, then you can think about applying it to other areas. What if we use it over here? What if we also used it for this other area? So you have to have a foundation to start with and empower your people to build upon that.
Yeah. You touched on a bunch of things there as well, but I'll frame a new question here. What do you think will be the most common pitfalls that you want decision makers to be aware of?
In addition to the lob it over the fence, that's just ripe for error. I think probably other possible pitfalls are, well, back to where we started, not taking security seriously.
Mm,
Havoc could happen if it's just like, well, we'll open all the gates and see what happens. Maybe it's not going to be as bad as we thought. So, I'm a big believer in a thoughtful approach.
mhm.
Now, it doesn't mean it has to be slow, but it should be thoughtful. So, you to not think about security, to not think about how you educate your staff, to not think about, actually say an organization just says, great, we're all in on Copilot. They buy everyone a license. Well, maybe a thoughtful, that's wild. Great,
Yeah.
good for you. Let's see what happens. Perhaps the thoughtful element could come in and then you actually make sure you get feedback from users. How are they using it? Maybe you more specifically run utilization reports. How many users are using it? How often are they using it? Where are they using it? Because if get 100 people licenses and only 20% are using it, you haven't
Yeah.
realized you can say your organization has Copilot, but you haven't realized business value, which is, in my opinion, that's the point of all of this.
Yeah. That's very insightful. Thanks so much. I've run out of questions, and you've given us a great setup for all these topics to think about and to discuss with industry experts. I'm really hoping to have another interview with you one day. As you already said, you're constantly learning on Copilot yourself. I'll throw more questions at you next time. I'm really grateful for you joining us, Andrea. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks, Rory. It's great. I can't wait till we talk again. It's going to keep evolving.
Yeah, all the best.
Thank you, you too.
Bye. Thanks for watching this episode on the Dynamics Compass podcast. We decided to launch this podcast after having spoken to a lot of people in the community who seem to be looking for answers to the same questions. So then why don't we find experts in the market that have the answers, interview them, and then release that information for free to help everyone progress their Microsoft Dynamics journey. So we hope that you found this video very informative and helpful for you to continue your journey and keep moving forward. If you would like to hear about any other topics, please write to me on LinkedIn, email me, rory@thegoodtalent.co, and we'd be happy to have a look. We'll look for the experts that have the answers. We'll interview them and it will be freely available to you. Again, thanks so much for watching. Thanks for your support as well. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.